From what you can tell, it seems to be the late 1800s in England. You are 17, and your father is a widower, raising you alone. Although you live in a beautiful, modest estate, your father has lost his fortune and is living off of past credit that is quickly running out. To save you both from poverty, you have agreed to marry Matthew, a wealthy landowner nearly twice your age and crippled from birth. Matthew is a capable man, but his mother has been running the estate all of his life and has decided it is time for him to marry so she can train you to eventually take her place as mistress of the estate. You watch the scene unfold before you on the day you arrived at your new home, riding in a carriage through miles and miles of property, surrounding an immense 3-story stone manor with over 100 rooms. Nearly 20 staff members are lined up in the driveway to meet you, but there's no sign of the man you are to marry, or his mother. You have no idea what to expect because you had agreed to marry him sight unseen. In fact, Matthew was so reclusive, no one outside of the estate had any idea what he looked like. And this led to much speculation and many harsh rumors amidst the elite social circuit, linked to both his physical appearance and his demeanor. You had prepared yourself for more of a monster than a man. You are ushered into a study where Matthew is sitting in a wheelchair with his back to you. But even as you approach him, you can tell he hasn't been confined to a wheelchair for long. Unlike people who have been crippled for quite some time, he seems remarkably robust, and his legs are not yet emaciated. As he turns to greet you, you're shocked. He looks much younger than you'd expected, and is quite handsome, with full lips, intensely blue eyes, and softly curling ginger hair. But even more surprising is the strange recognition you feel when you first look at each other. You both seem to recognize an inexplicable connection that exists between you. The intensity of it takes your breath away. In spite of the fact that you are about to be married, and you know it's impolite to continue staring into Matthew's eyes, yet you struggle to look away. He matches your stare unwaveringly as well. Suddenly, a loud ahem breaks the spell as Matthew's mother enters the room. Matthew quickly turns away. At first, you feel confused, then embarrassed, thinking you must have imagined the whole thing. And then you mistake his reaction as one of arrogance. But from your current perspective, lifetimes away from that moment, you realize that Matthew isn't being arrogant or egotistical. Rather, he is intensely shy. And then you discover you have access to his mother's thoughts, and it is clear that his mother has manipulated him from childhood as a means of maintaining control. You become aware that this woman has taught Matthew to believe that his birth defect, a minor malady which could have been highly improved if not cured over time, would cause any woman to reject him. This belief is so firmly ingrained from his childhood that Matthew is uncomfortable looking any woman in the eye. So he was as shocked as you when you held each other's gaze with unexpected recognition. Yet as you stand next to him on the day of your wedding, idly listening to the minister repeat a marriage ceremony that he had doubtlessly given until it was rote, Matthew withdraws into a lonely world of his own, without the slightest glance in your direction. Standing there, you forlornly recall your girlhood fantasies, and what you dreamed your wedding day would be like. The carriage and horses, the splendor, the dancing and royal guests. But just as quickly, you banish the thought, determined to make the best of your new life. In this lifetime, you had been raised by a wonderful and loving father. You have always been kind-hearted, and in some ways, Matthew seemed like one of the many stray animals you'd taken in over the years. As his wife, you felt you'd have the opportunity to love him and that he'd soften. But Matthew wants nothing to do with you. You are young and beautiful, and even though you're married, Matthew believes you have nothing to offer him other than pity, and he's too proud for that. Bound by etiquette, tradition, and the laws of the day, feelings were mostly kept privately within. But as you watch that lifetime unfold, every single thought and feeling is laid bare before you. In your science class, you learn that light travels into infinity, never ceasing to exist. And you wonder if it's possible that human thoughts, feelings, and events continue unchanged as well. It's both strange and disturbing to think that your own thoughts you believed were completely private, might be accessible in the future, and that you couldn't lie or try to make up a good story, because the truth would still be there somewhere, amidst all the other infinitely shining light. Anyone accessing the information would know the truth exactly as it happened. Immediately following your wedding ceremony, Matthew retreats directly to his bedroom suite. You are assigned a room at the opposite end of the house, and Matthew's mother wastes no time as she proceeds to instruct you in regard to your duties as mistress of the estate. A profound sadness washes over you as you watch years go by, with the knowledge that at another time and in another place, you had once been deeply in love. You can see that even though you have no conscious memories of other games, there is actually some level of unconscious emotional transference from one game to another. Matthew treats you politely in passing, but never entertains an actual conversation with you. You can't understand why he is so distant, and why he has no desire to have a child. You feel like a caged bird, but the door to that cage flies open and sets you free when Matthew's mother suddenly falls ill and is bedridden in a wing of the house far from the daily activities. In the end, there is nothing any doctor can do for her, so the staff is advised to keep her as calm and quiet as possible for the remainder of her days. You now find yourself as mistress of the estate, and at once effectively turn the household staff upside down and inside out with your new plans for the life you want to live. Much to the initial shock and dismay of the head butler, you no longer sit alone at the mahogany dinner table that seems to reach out to infinity. Instead, you begin dining with the household staff. This, of course, is unthinkable and, frankly, never done, but there is no protocol for such behavior. When you first appear in the servants' dining area, everyone feels awkward and uncomfortable, but by the end of your meal, echoes of gay laughter peal through the halls of what had previously been nothing short of a mausoleum. You begin singing and playing the piano, which had never been allowed by Matthew's mother. You fall in love with gardening and learn all about the farm, insisting you be present for the birth of the farm animals, even if it's in the middle of the night. In no time at all, you're able to deliver a calf or a colt as easily as milking a cow. You learn to ride and hunt and jump horses, but you dispense with the side saddle and wear breeches so you can ride astride the horse like a man. In this particular game, you had been married into the highest position in society, yet you weren't socially inclined to have friends that would criticize you. Everyone on the staff adores you, so it really doesn't matter to you what the outside world would think. As you played your part in this game, You assumed Matthew simply didn't care for you. But now, as the observer of that game, you are able to see what had been invisible to you in that lifetime. Every night, Matthew ordered his meal to be delivered to his room, but he would secretly sit at the top of the stairs in his wheelchair, listening and smiling as laughter erupted from below. He swore the staff to secrecy as he moved from room to room, watching you as you worked in the garden or as you rode the horses or played with the young farm animals. He would close his eyes and listen with delight as you played the piano and sang. In truth, he adored you and longed to be part of your life, but he was afraid to show his true affections, for fear that you would find him repulsive and that he would lose you in the end. As the years progress, you watch as your desire to love Matthew and have his child transposed into love for the farm animals and nature. Every spring you poured love out to all the new babies on the farm and spent the summer and fall delighting in their growth. Even though you had become quite content to finally let go of what you thought your life was supposed to be, you felt a profound sadness that Matthew never opened his heart and allowed you to love him. And then, one beautiful summer day, Matthew becomes extremely ill. The doctors predict he will die within a week, but you sit with him resolutely day and night. You eat your meals in his room, and though he is unconscious, you read poetry and prose, and sometimes sing songs. Believing he is unable to hear you, you share everything you hold in your heart. You speak of your favorite flowers blooming in the garden, and describe how the sunlight magically glitters on the pond as you watch the swans sail elegantly throughout the day. You tell him charming stories about the staff members and all the animals on the farm. Then one day, his eyes flicker open, and for the first time he smiles at you. His smile is weak, but it is genuine, and love fills his watery eyes as he says, "You've been with me all this time. I heard every word and I felt every beat of your heart." You dissolve into tears and lay your head on Matthew's shoulder as he reaches out tentatively to stroke your hair. Miraculously, he's in remission. You don't know how long you'll have together, so you make every moment count. You share poetry and painting. Matthew joins you in the garden in his wheelchair, and for the first time you eat your meals together. At night you lie in bed next to Matthew with your head on his shoulder and your arm across his chest as he strokes your hair. Then, one morning upon waking and feeling his hand gently resting on your shoulder, you see the light in Matthew's eyes flicker as he gazes upon you with unfathomable love, and in the next moment, he is no longer there. "I'll do it! I'll go!" you say in tears as you reach out for Delilah. The moment your hand touches Delilah's, you are instantly standing in a place with very little color. The sun has already sunk below the horizon, and looming gray clouds hang heavily overhead. Ill-nourished flowers, faded and sickly, are here and there in the midst of parched yellow patches of grass. Everywhere you look, the countryside surrounding you is in a gradual state of deterioration. As you continue on, the sad-looking vegetation gives way to barren rocks. The light steadily diminishes, and everything surrounding you appears in dismal shades of gray. Even your clothing looks gray. Before you, a rocky pathway winds its way downhill through massive boulders, and on into what appears to be a land of deep, black, impenetrable darkness. Looking deeply into your eyes, Delilah says, "I can't go any further with you than this. You won't get lost. Just keep heading downhill. You will eventually come to a place that is at the very bottom of a deep crater." "And that's why Thomas sent me here? That's what he wants me to see? Some crater?" "Yes, it's the place he fears above all else. He doesn't know for sure what it's like there, but he's heard rumors, and he's terrified." Your body shivers uncontrollably. "I have to go?" "If you don't go now, Thomas will find a way to send you back again," says Delilah. "But I have 2 gifts for you. One is this rose quartz," she says, handing a polished, pink, heart-shaped stone to you. "It will protect you, so don't lose it. My second gift is that you won't consciously remember any of this when you come back to life in your avatar body." "But if I can't remember, how will I tell Thomas what I saw?" you say anxiously. "Thomas will pick up your experience telepathically," says Delilah, wrapping her arms around you and hugging you tightly. Hanging on for dear life, you close your eyes tightly and wish away whatever is to come. But in the next moment, Delilah is gone. Your heart sinks as you walk along a hardened pathway that crosses over barren, colorless land. A dull gray sky looms lifeless overhead, and the temperature is dropping quickly. When you were in the realms of light, surrounded by beauty, the idea of doing this on your own seemed viable, heroic even. But now you're all alone, and your feelings of vulnerability and helplessness gather strength as you climb to the top of a rocky hill and find nothing below but a towering bank of mist. You look around desperately for another way down, but the fog spreads out as far as you can see. Fear seizes you all at once as you follow the path into mist that wraps itself around you like a death shroud. You can barely see the ground as you slowly and carefully pick your way down the slick, rocky hillside. The fog gathers in density until it transforms into swirling, damp, heavy clouds that press upon you like cold, dead weight. Nervously, you wrap your fingers around the pink heart-shaped stone in your pocket, and to your surprise, you suddenly feel warm and a bit less frightened as well. Gradually, the clouds dissipate until they vanish altogether, revealing a bleak landscape with no trees or grass or plants of any kind, leaving only small square houses that look completely uninviting and even a bit sinister in their utter plainness. Every home stood solitary and forlorn, without a single adornment, as if each were housing people who lived in extreme poverty. As you pass by the houses, you see a middle-aged man standing on his porch, dressed in what might have been worn in the 1800s by someone very wealthy. But each piece is completely tattered and threadbare, leaving him with nothing more than an air of faded prosperity. With no effort at all, you clearly see an overlay that shows you the kind of person he was while on Earth. He had been a very successful businessman, and though he made sure that everything he did was legal, he was ruthless in his treatment of others. At home, everyone was subservient to him. He gave generously to charity and his church, but only if he saw a financial or social advantage for himself. He was solely motivated by selfishness and greed. Though the man doesn't seem to notice you, you give him a wide berth as you walk quietly past his house. Even so, you can hear him muttering to himself about the injustice of it all and how much he is forced to suffer in this place. Suddenly his eyes narrow and shift upward until he is staring suspiciously in your direction. Instinctively, you stop in your tracks. He stares for a moment longer, and then looks away and continues ranting about his pathetic existence. You know that the stone is protecting you from the cold, but is it causing you to be invisible as well? Testing the situation, you carefully draw your hand away from the crystal in your pocket. The instant you lose contact with the stone, the man's head jerks up. Licking his lips, he stares greedily at you, as if you're about to be his next meal. Jamming your hand back into your pocket, you grab the stone. Instantly, the man's eyes go blank, as if you had been nothing more than a figment of his imagination. Silently, you continue on. You are still unseen by the man, but you are able to hear him grumbling for quite some time. Gradually, the path seems to disappear as you pick your way through rocky formations. The grey light diminishes rapidly from the darkening heavy black sky. There isn't a soul or any sign of life whatsoever. Everything surrounding you is colorless and empty, as if you had just wandered into another world. Dimly ahead, you can see some dwellings as you pass through rocks and nothing else. Here and there, you see people sitting silently, their heads bowed down, filled with gloom and despair. These structures are nothing more than shacks, so utterly worn down and disheveled, it is distressing just to look at them. But it's infinitely more unsettling that these repulsive places are the end result of someone's lifetime on Earth. You jump as a man suddenly appears out of the darkness and speaks to you.
"I'm sorry if I frightened you,"
he says gently.
"But my dear, this isn't where you belong. If you continue in this direction, you may not return to the world of light for a very long time."
You stand quietly for a moment, staring at him. "Are you someone who tries to help these people?"
"Yes. There are many of us who continually attempt to rescue those who end up here. But we find it impossible to succeed if they don't want to be rescued."
"How do you know they don't want to be rescued? Why would anyone want to live like this?" you say, aghast.
If the person doesn't have a glimmer of light in their mind, or even the slightest desire to step forward onto a different path, then nothing, literally nothing, can be done. The desire to change has to come from deep within that person. People here are revealed for being exactly who they are, and so they punish themselves, choosing over and over to be right. But there always comes a time, even if it takes thousands of years, where they finally realize they've punished themselves long enough with their own thoughts and convictions. And when the darkness they've created no longer holds any attraction to them, they finally choose to let go. And in that moment, they are immediately transported out of the darkness and into a place where they can begin to heal. It takes time because they have to acclimate to the light realms. But we've never lost anyone, says the man, smiling as he answers your unspoken question.
"But why did you say that I might not be able to get back to where I came from?" you ask anxiously. "If I came in this way, why couldn't I get back out?"
"Let me explain," says the man kindly. "Have you noticed that there's nothing keeping these people here? There are no walls, no prisons, no restraints of any kind."
"So why don't they just leave and go to where it's beautiful?" you ask, as you think of how miserable life must be in this place.
Think of the spirit world like a mountainside. When a person exits the game, they instantly find themselves on a part of the mountain
that matches their most deeply held beliefs on Earth. But no matter what level you are on, if you try to enter a level that is higher than your own frequency, it would be very much like trying to climb Mount Everest without acclimating to the lack of oxygen. You simply come to a point where you can't breathe, and this causes everyone to turn around and go back to where they came from. But if I came from a higher part of the mountain, then why can't I go back? You ask. My dear, the reason I suggest you don't continue any further is because you are empathic. The discomfort you experience is caused by your ability to feel the thoughts and beliefs of others. It's manageable now, but it will get far worse the deeper you go, and you're not trained to be here. I too am empathic, and I understand your reasons for being here. But please listen to me. If you continue on, you will be surrounded by people who are drowning in their own misery. And if they see you, if they have any awareness of your presence, they will grab hold of you and energetically take you down with them. You will forget who you are and how you came to be there. Their world of darkness will become your only reality.